Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Boobies and Newbies. You can follow us at Boobies Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. And if you'd like to support the podcast and get a little extra bonus Boobies content every month, you can support us on Patreon at Boobies Podcast. Welcome to Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today I'm joined by friend, Second City Improv alum, and healthcare worker by day, comedian by night, Gabby Oloye. I did it wrong.
It's okay.
I said your name wrong. I said I was going to pronounce it right, and I said Gabby Oloye.
Yes, exactly.
Oloye. It's kind of like, no, it's not. I was going to say it's like aloha, but it's not.
Okay. Close.
Or like Olay.
Olay, yeah. I feel
Okay.
like that's pretty close. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No worries. No sweats. Yeah.
Gabby Oloye.
There you go.
There she is. Such a sport, as you can tell, anybody listening. Yeah, as I mentioned, Gabby and I met during Second City Improv class. What was it, level 2?
Yes.
And we made it through level 2 and 3 together, like rock stars. Mm-hmm. And now Gabby's going on to perform at the conservatory.
Yes.
Are you excited?
I am excited. I'm also a little nervous too, because I'm like, oh, where is this gonna go? But I'm mostly excited.
Yeah. I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you're absolutely hysterical.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Is the dream to be like stand-up comic, or is it like more of you want to do like sketch comedy, or just like the whole kit and caboodle?
I'm thinking more like the whole kit and caboodle. I feel like I'm leaning a little bit more towards sketch comedy though. The stand-up thing kind of came as like a little like side situation once I started improv. But I'm really open to a lot of different things right now.
For anybody that happens to be living in LA, is there a place or a time that they might be able to come see you do your thing? Like, do you have anything coming up?
Yes. Well, I should be having a performance in about 7 weeks or so at the end of the conservatory course that I'm currently taking. And then if you follow me on Twitter, I might be able to post some more information about like mics that I might be doing and stuff like that.
Well, and of course we'll hook everybody up with what's going on Twitter, and they can follow you. What's your handle on Twitter?
It's Gabby O is the way I like to pronounce it, but it's spelled GABBYOO.
Yeah, that's ooh.
It is ooh.
I'm sorry, more than one O. You know what though? I did see this guy. This is my favorite. Is I was at work today and I had to tag some people on Twitter in a post, and his name was obviously Jose, but his handle was like Jose. Like it was like 3 S's, 3 E's. But I was like, when do you go from Jose to Jose? Like, what's the cutoff? It's the same with like Gabby-o, Gabby-oo.
I know. The correct way to pronounce it based on his spelling is definitely Gabby-oo. But I would like it to be Gabby-o, but that was already taken, so...
So whoever the bitch is named Gabby-o out there, God, way to ruin lives. Ruin lives, ruin Twitter handles, all over the place. Oh boy. Okay, well, let's get down to business. Today, Gabby and I will be discussing the book Their Discovery by Rebecca Grace Allen. And this book is brand spanking new, emphasis on spanking. It was published as of today when we're recording. It was released yesterday, April 29th, 2019. This episode will come out fairly quickly because we are actually participating in the release blitz for Their Discovery. So this book is available on Amazon for $4.99, Kindle edition. It's also book 3 in the Legally Bound series. You can probably take a wild guess what kind of binding is happening in these books. And as I mentioned, this is part of a release blitz with a Novel Take PR. I volunteered to review an advanced reader's copy of this book. Thank you, a Novel Take PR and Rebecca Grace Allen, for letting me read this book. These opinions expressed in this review are entirely of our own. So before we get down to the dirty of their discovery, and there is plenty of dirty to talk about in this book, I have to ask you, before reading their discovery, had you ever read a romance novel, or we'll say erotica as well, beforehand?
I hadn't. And I was thinking about this. I don't understand why exactly, possibly because I just never thought of it as an option. When I would go to the bookstore, I would be looking at the section for like bestsellers or looking for something that somebody like recommended to me.
Sure.
And so I just never thought about it. My friend did put me on actually at one time to like this website where you can read like erotica written by fans of like certain popular series like Harry Potter.
Oh, okay, so fan fiction.
Like yeah, like fan fiction.
We're actually, spoiler alert, going to be doing a special spotlight episode in May about fan fiction.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
I just I never checked it out though, so yeah. I guess I wasn't curious enough, but...
Well, hopefully we'll change that a little bit. But it's interesting, too, because in this book, our main character, who has, this incredible, like, sexual discovery, she also has, like, this specific impression of, like, romance novels. I thought that was... It's always interesting to me in romance novels when characters discuss romance novels. Because I feel like in this one, Rebecca Grace Allen mentioned that Sam, our main character, she starts to discover that she might be a female Domme by reading these BDSM erotica stories where she's like, oh, actually, I'm kind of identifying more with the Domme personality, which are usually men, as opposed to the women who are being dominated. But she, like called the book smut and, before I read them, like, I thought that was like, I can't read that, and I feel like that's the opinion that a lot of people think of when they think of romance, including a lot of people we've had on this podcast. So
yeah, she also mentioned how like there was that perspective of them being like mommy books or something.
Mommy porn.
Or mommy
yes.
porn,
oh,
yeah.
I was like, hate that term personally. Like, I'm just like, but I mean, I definitely understand where it comes from. Yeah, I've heard mommy porn. I've heard like just kind of like people describing romance as like written porn, reading porn kind of thing. And I mean, it's interesting because it's like, I do understand that, like, I think you get the same thing from romance and porn, like depending on what you're looking for. Some people read a romance novel because they want a happy ending. Like, I feel like that's the majority of people. Like, when it comes to romance specifically, like, it's like watching a romantic comedy. Like, when you go in, 99% of the time it is going to work out absolutely wonderfully for these characters.
Yeah. And
I think that's why people love romance, is that not only do these people get a happy ending, but usually in like a heterosexual romance, you're specifically seeing everything work out for the female character. Like, you want to see women succeed. And that's something that's also mentioned in this book by Sam, the main character, is when she's talking about books about romance novels. She says, oh yeah, like, that's so silly. Like, the woman gets, the love of her life and a job and all this stuff. And then her friend even points out, isn't that what's kind of working out for you? Is you're getting all these things? And I feel like we just kind of feel guilty when things are going well for us.
Yeah, especially when comparing to like your other friends or other people in general who are not doing as well.
Well, and that's the problem too, is that we're comparing. Like, I feel like that's such a trait of women specifically too. Like, I'm sure men do it too. I can't speak for men, but we as women have such a bad habit of comparing ourselves to other women.
That's right. And then also that feeling where you want to always be doing better, regardless of what you're doing. It's not enough sometimes.
Right.
So.
Like, and how do you define better? Like, I always feel guilty when I have like a day where I like sit on the couch and like watch TV and like not do anything actually productive. Like, And then I have to remind myself, no, this is okay. You earn these moments. Like you get your work done. You know, is there something else I could be doing? Sure. But, you know, you don't have to be doing something every second of the day.
Exactly.
But that's my own issue to work through.
yeah, I hear you. I get in those spaces too, and then I'm like, wait, self-care is important as fuck. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Important as fuck. Okay. So, okay, you hadn't read a romance before. Mm-hmm. You like dabbled in a little bit of fan fiction. Mm-hmm. Do you remember any of the fan fiction you read? Like, was there a specific story or characters?
I actually didn't go into it that much. I remember like checking out the site, and then like I didn't see anything that like really like tantalized my interest. So I was like, just kidding. And so yeah.
My friend Abby, who I'm actually going to have on our Spotlight episode to discuss fan fiction, she recently introduced me to this site where you have to subscribe to it. Like, it's basically like subscribing to, you know, any site like Netflix, Hulu, whatever it is. And it's all erotic fan fiction comic book. Like, it's all told in... I don't even know, what do you call them? Not comic books, graphic novels. Like, but it's all erotic ones. And it's online, and it's written and designed by women. And so I was like, oh my gosh, what is that? Like, it's never something that I've looked into. And so now I'm like, okay, I feel like I've been missing out on this entire other section of the romance erotic world.
Yeah, and especially to hear that it's like, made by women. That's like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah, they have a few sites now too that are there's a few porn and adult sites that are by women, specifically designed for women.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's great. And it's not all like gentle lovemaking, because that's all women want. We just wanna lay down on a feathered bed and all the pillows and silk sheets. I mean, that's great. But
there needs to be some of that other good shit too. Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So before we talk about the book itself, let us give everyone a brief synopsis about the book. So this is the Amazon synopsis for their Discovery Book 3 in the Legally Bound series. Here we go. Samantha Archer's life has hit a wall. Her world is housework, homework, and reminding her husband, the biggest kid in the family, to help out at home. Once she felt confident, powerful, and sexy, but Brady doesn't seem to notice her anymore, and now all she feels is invisible. Brady has tried being the goofy guy who stole Sam's heart, but it's not working. He's losing the woman he loves and doesn't have a clue how to fix it. We'll get into Brady. He's keeping his darkest fantasies hidden too. Sure, they're not what Sam wants, and his inability to please her cuts him deeper than she knows. Aw. When Sam lands a new job at a law firm, Brady still won't pick up the slack, and one night, giving him orders unexpectedly reignites their missing spark. Sam discovers the Femdomme she didn't know she was, kindling Brady's submissive desires. But while things heat up inside the bedroom, life outside it starts unraveling. Brady's need to call the shots at work complicates his hunger to kneel for his wife, and Sam has longed to experiment in more ways than one. Their exploration of dominance and submission goes a step too far when they invite Sam's sultry switch coworker into their bed, and the fallout could cost them everything. And then this is at the end of the synopsis. Warning, contains a 6'5" ex-football player geek and a ballsy badass redhead who's learning to unleash her inner Domme. Scenes depicting humiliation, pegging, and threesomes could disturb or stimulate a thirst for adventure. Nice. You know what? I actually prefer that little excerpt compared to the entire other synopsis. Yeah. Like, I feel like the synopsis kind of gives you almost too much of their backstory. Like, I like that it's the little warning at the end, like, this is him, this is her, here's what's gonna happen between them, good luck.
Yeah, it gets down to the nitty-gritty, the good part.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, we'll start here because I know that you have an interesting connection to this story, which I did not know about when I asked you to be a part of this podcast and this specific book, and it just somehow was serendipitous. It all worked out. And so I definitely want to hear your overall impressions, but before you tell us what you were thinking about the book, can you tell us a little bit about sort of your connection to the world of BDSM?
Sure, yeah. So I used to be a Domme. And I say used to because I haven't been like active more recently. But it all started out because I'm extra tall. I'm 6'8", and I used to get a lot of attention from people who have fetishes for like strong women, tall women, giants, all that kind of stuff. And those type of people tend to be people who want to be in like a subspace more often. And so that kind of like introduced me into the whole kink scene. But before that, I always had this like low-key desire to be more aggressive, be the person to make the first move, that kind of thing. So once I was introduced into the kink scene, I was like, oh shit, okay, like I can vibe with this.
I feel like that actually makes a lot of sense too, like knowing your personality. Like you seem a lot quieter and subdued and everything. And I feel like when we read books and watch movies and hear about the kink scene, that usually it's these people who are in these super dominating roles in like jobs and their real life that they kind of want to step away from that and be submissive. So I can see where it'd be the opposite for you, that you have a very, quiet personality, but then, in the kink scene, not so much, turn it up to 100 sort of thing.
Yeah, you've probably seen it too, like from me on stage, like whenever I've had to play like a villain or something like that, something turns on within me and I'm like, okay, yes.
So that's your kink coming out on stage.
A little bit.
All right.
Yeah. So my interest turned into me kind of doing it so that I can like have shit done around my place while I was in grad school. So
I love that so much.
I would use it to like basically have subs like do my laundry, clean my dishes, keep my room clean, and a little bit also to give me like a little bit of a ego boost. Excuse me. But I realized that later on, sort of that wasn't really that fulfilling for me until I got back. I took a break and then I got back into it when I moved to Los Angeles. And I started doing it more for like my true desire to like express my feminine power. And so thankfully I got the opportunity to also learn from like professional doms who
that's
do
cool.
it for a living, and that was like really eye-opening and helped a lot. And then I started like doing it more for me, like, or for the needs inside, or for what some people would call like the monster within us, or the monster within us doms, or within me.
The monster or like the superhero? Like,
well, yeah,
let's be real.
See, that's the great thing about it. It could be whatever you want it to be. So
that's cool.
If you like envision yourself as a superhero, that's what's up too, So you make it work for you. So yeah.
No, that's really cool. I have to ask, especially when you were in grad school, I'm just so curious about how do you find people that are also part of the scene? Like, how did you find your subs? Okay, so most of them came through a lovely little website called Craigslist. Yes.
The Craigslist personal ads, I'm so sad that they don't
so sad. Like, I for sure went on multiple Craigslist dates in college. Like, I mean, it was so cool. It was just it was like a good element of danger. Like, if you like need like a little thrill, it's kind of like, I really appreciate living in a side of town that's like not super gentrified, where you're like, ooh, like there's like a possibility where like I could get mugged tonight. Like, yes. But then also being like, we have the best food in this area, you know, like it's always where the good food is too. It's always where the good food is. But it was kind of the same thing. I mean, there's always a risk with online dating or any sort of hookup that you're, you know, going to meet someone. How is Craigslist any different, you know?
Exactly. No, that's real talk. So yeah, I really do miss it. And then also I used to get subs from, oh my God, the website is like I'm blanking on it right now. It's like a really big, famous, like, BDSM website. Oh, FetLife.
FemLife?
FetLife. FetLife.
Got it. So fetish. Mm-hmm. Got it. So, and I'm assuming like on a site like that, they would have like all the different fetishes and like people could connect with people with different kinks and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. It's basically like Facebook, but for like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's Facebook, but for fetish. You know, I mean, why not? Did you hear, by the way, it's totally not super on topic, but did you hear that Facebook is like coming out with like their own sort of dating app kind of thing? Like, yeah. But it's like a part of Facebook. It's called like Secret Crush or Secret, I think it's Secret Crush, but I don't even understand it, but it has something to do with how you can like, I don't know if you like announce you have a crush or it'll give you like a notification like someone has a crush on you. I'm like, is this the new poke? Like, remember when you could poke people on Facebook? Like, was this all leading up to Secret Crushes?
I guess so, but I'm like, for some reason I'm disappointed to hear that Facebook is going in that direction. I feel like they should stay in their lane. Like, it sounds corny to me.
Well, especially because it's like all our parents on Facebook. I'm just like, are they going to be like crushing on each other? Like, I don't need that in my life. Like,
no, thank you.
Yeah, anyway. But yeah, okay, cool. So you were coming into this book, and again, I had no idea that this was part of your background. So I love that this was the book that kind of fell into your lap. So I have to say, coming into this book, having never read romance or erotica, but having the background you do have in BDSM, what was your overall impression of this book?
I thought it was pretty good. It definitely, like, I was reminded of some of the scenes that I've been in. I was reminded of some of the people that I've met. And it did a good job of showing, like, what it is like to, like, mess up and feel, like, self-conscious about it.
Okay.
And that's the way things should, like, I feel like people should feel okay about messing up with sex in general.
Well, with life in general, I feel like.
Exactly.
Like, there were so many moments where I was reading both Sam and Brady's point of views where they basically are just, like, worried they're not being enough for their partner. I'm being a bad mom. I'm being a bad wife. I'm being a bad husband. I'm being a bad coworker. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, stop. Like, I just wanted to hug them all the time and be like, it's okay. But no, I think you're right, too, that people, especially, I mean, we do get a very specific view of sex in romance novels, in movies, in TV shows that, you know, it's just kind of like this thing leads to this thing leads to this thing.
Exactly.
And that's it. You know, like, I mean, so I feel like it's not that clean. It's not that clear cut. So this definitely, I'm with you. It definitely gave you a different perspective that I feel like I haven't seen in a book before. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Especially with the thought of these types of books always having happy endings and everything like that. The fact that it threw in that realism that, like, okay, sometimes it's, like, shitty and shit gets fucked up.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah. Well, and there was definitely a point in the story where I honestly questioned whether or not they were going to end up together. Like, so, I mean, it definitely, I have some qualms with the book in general, which is fine. I mean, I feel like everybody does with everything. Like, it can't be perfect, you know? And that's because we come from our own specific points of view. We're all going to have something different to say about it. But one of them was definitely that I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as a romance novel just because it doesn't have a lot of the tropes I've come to expect with a romance novel. But at the same time, it also does. Like, there is that moment of, like, you know, the misunderstanding, like, will they actually get together kind of thing. It's just different in that you have this entirely new setup to start with. Like, this couple has been together and been married and had kids for several years. They've been together for like 17 years.
Yeah.
And most romance novels you read, that's not the case. You know, so you have a lived-in couple. One of our previous guests, MK, she's a big fan of lived-in relationships. So I like it. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of tension there. Like, you don't really have to add to the fire. Like, it's already brewing, you know? So I feel like at times there were definitely elements that were added on top. Like, this whole scandal with, like, where she's working and how somebody's stealing money. I was like, I don't need this. Like, I don't think I need this. Like, you know, there's already so much happening with this relationship. I kind of wanted to just focus on that.
I hear you, yeah.
But I have to ask, did you think, you mentioned some of the scenes in the book, were they accurate? Like, were there moments where, like, did you think it was an accurate representation of BDSM?
I think so, definitely. I mean, I think things can get a little bit stranger in BDSM. Things can get a little, and they could also be less stranger too.
Yeah.
But I think it was pretty darn accurate in terms of, like, him enjoying humiliation and then that leading to, like, the pegging and stuff like that. Like, yeah, totally accurate. And I don't know what else to say about it besides that, but yeah.
But you thought it was an accurate representation. I mean, because I know that that's been, like, a major complaint when it comes to, like, 50 Shades of Grey, is that people didn't think it was an accurate representation. What I liked about this one that I found lacking in other series that I've read, like 50 Shades of Grey, is that there was so much communication between the two of them, which is ironic because, like, one of the reasons they have their, like, momentary breakup is because they're, like, not communicating. And I'm like, it's so weird because they've actually done a really good job communicating throughout the book. Like, she asks him, what do you need from me before? What are you interested in? What do you not want to do? What are your hard limits? They set, you know, their safe words. I mean, they really do talk so much, but then they don't communicate about, like, the big issues.
Right.
Like, they don't communicate. I mean, it's almost hard for me to buy into the fact that this couple has been together for as long as they've been together, and neither of them has said anything about what they're really into sexually.
Exactly.
And they both also happen to be a dom and a sub. Like, it was a lot for me to buy into to start with.
I do completely agree with you on that, because that didn't make much sense. Like, you would think that in college, at least, when they were together, that there would be some kind of discussion of, like, oh, I like it when you, like, deny me your coochie and shit like that. Like, you would think that would come up.
Again, I mean, it all goes back to the fact that they really do communicate well when they're in the bedroom, but then when they're outside of the bedroom, like, they don't. Like, they don't talk about their relationship. They talk about the sex they're having. Like, they don't. And that's, like, when they kind of break up for a hot second. You know, she tells him, we've been using sex to, like, kind of hide from the fact that something's wrong with our marriage. Like, this isn't about us not having sex or having sex. It's about something bigger than that. And it kind of took a long time for them to get to that point.
Definitely.
So that was, like, probably my overall concern with the story. Like, I really enjoyed reading it. I think this is a topic that I see the least of when it comes to romance and erotica. Like, I know that there are Femdomme books out there. I know that there are BDSM books out there. I've read a good chunk of BDSM stories, but this is the first one I've ever read with the female in the dominating role. So, I mean, I guess I'm the newbie kind of in this scenario too. Like, and it's funny because I was like, you know, this is so interesting to me. There were terms, too, that they used that I wasn't familiar with. Like, one of them was, well, okay, here, talk about another twist where you're sort of like, really? they not only are in this dominant submissive relationship, but like all of their friends and family members are also in dom sub relationships.
That was so unrealistic. It's not even funny. Like
I get that it's part of a book series, you know. So yeah. I haven't read the other 2 books in the series, but from reading this one, I can guess that the other 2 books in the series are going to be about the other 2 couples that are prominent in this series. Who is it? It's Jack and Lily and Cassie and whoever she's with.
Yeah.
There were a few guys' names. Yeah. But so I was like, okay, so like there's one, you know, for each of them. Like they're all kind of part of the same universe. I get it. But it was interesting to me that like they all just kind of naturally know each other or are related to each other. It's not like they met at like a club or, you know, through Craigslist ads. You know, I mean, they just all happen to also be part of the kink scene. Too much.
Yeah, that was too unrealistic. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, but one of the terms they use, well, I didn't know what a switch was in terms of this specific scene. Like I was like, oh, like for me, I was like switch. So like, I think of like I've had a gay male friend say that he switches before, where I'm like, okay, so you can like be on top or on bottom. And so, I mean, that's similar in terms of the kink scene as well.
Yeah, it is, because a lot of times they'll like, people will say like top as in like, okay, like being a dom, or bottom as being like a sub. So I guess it kind of works the same way.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting too. The character, what's that girl's name?
Hannaline.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, Hannah's character, in that she doms for men, but she subs for women.
I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was absolutely awesome, because it makes you think a little bit more about the intricacies of why people choose to do what they do.
Yeah.
And so I was really fascinated by that, and I'm glad that they put that in there.
I liked that too. Like, besides that, like, Hannah's character and her storyline at the office aren't like my favorite, but I do like the tie-in that she has to Sam's discoveries, that she mentions early on in the book that she had a chance to have a threesome with a man and a woman when she was, you know, in college, and she didn't do it, and she's always regretted it. And I was like, okay, well, she better have a fucking threesome by the end of this book with a woman, or I am going to be pissed. Like, and they do. I mean, it, you know, doesn't go great, you know, but I do like that is something that comes into play, and that she gets to explore, you know, her feelings for this woman. And like you said, Hannah has this really, really interesting story to her sexuality. And I'm like, that's great. I mean, there's so many different ways people identify that it's like, it's fantastic that I guess that's the one thing about having so many friends and family members who are all part of this kink scene is I will give the author credit that they all have different relationships. Like, the other term I wasn't familiar with was consensual non-consent.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked it up, and I was like, this sounds interesting. Like, I have ideas about what this means, but I'm not sure. And so it seemed like it's like the idea of like playing out like violent or rape fantasies or stranger fantasies with someone that obviously is not a stranger. Like, this is somebody you're with, and you know you're consenting to have these non-consensual experiences.
Right.
But yeah, I looked it up and was like definitely scrolling through some like rules and stuff that somebody had put out, like, well, you can do this, but you can't do this. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one less familiar to me, but I found it fascinating. So bravo to our authoress for including more and more and more for us to explore in this book.
For sure.
Okay, what other things did you like in this book?
I liked the fact that it allowed me to see a little bit more into the male psyche for a second, because Brady, his issues with communication, his issues with not being able to follow through on things, I'm sure a lot of women can think back to some of their exes and be like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see, or to get to explore that and to understand why some men are like that.
Yeah.
So that was really, it was actually kind of like therapeutic for me and helped me get some closure with some personal situations.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. It was, both of them had super detailed backgrounds, which I think was fantastic. There were times where I was kind of like, I don't know if we need all of that. Like, with Brady, he has this whole backstory about how he used to play football. I mean, he's a big dude. He used to play football. And the reason he stopped playing was he was injured because he was basically beat up by the rest of his teammates because he was defending his friend or brother.
Friend and other teammate,
Yeah, he was defending his friend who had come out as gay, or like they had found out he was gay, and they were all beating them up, like because he was gay, and beating up Brady because he was defending his friend. Which I was like, oh my God, like, first of all, this is Boston, like, not Kansas. God. But, no offense, Kansas. Well, you know, maybe a little bit. But yeah, and so he got injured. So, I mean, there was that whole backstory, which I was kind of trying to figure out how that played into this story. Like, I wasn't really sure what that necessarily had to do with this specific story with Brady. Like, I kept wondering if because he and his wife experiment with anal play and she, you know, pegs him and uses some toys on him, I kept thinking like maybe he was going to have like a crisis of, you know, thinking, oh my gosh, you know, am I gay? Am I attracted to men? And I'm glad she didn't go there with it, because I was like, I don't want him to suddenly be like, I'm attracted to my friend who happens to be gay that I defended in college. Like, that would have just been
too much.
So much. Like, but yeah, I never really understood that whole backstory with that.
Yeah, I was trying to search too for how that related to what was going on, and I felt like I drew some kind of like blurry conclusion about him like being just somebody who was like more caring and like supportive, and how that allowed him to be in tune with what his needs are sexually. I tried to draw something about it, but
I kept trying to draw into the fact that he kind of gets off on her humiliating him. But there's a lot of questions I was having throughout about their relationship, which I guess makes sense because they're having all these questions about their relationship too. In that, you know, they don't talk about it till the end, but like, he's like, I want to be dominated, but only by you. Yeah. I like to be humiliated by you, but only in the bedroom. Like, there were so many rules, and because they didn't talk about them right away, it just kept leading to more and more problems until they finally talk about everything. So, I mean, yeah, it was definitely, he was an interesting character in that the way he's described is sort of like physically the kind of man that like I envision myself with, like this big hulking guy, you know, kind of like a lumberjack sort of look. Like, that's what I'm picturing, you know, and I'm all about a lumberjack. We gotta like haul our asses up to like Canada and pick us out some lumberjacks.
That would be lovely.
Yeah, great. We'll plan it. And but then I love his whole storyline of, you know, am I weak? Like, you know, because I feel like that's definitely something that not just men, but women who, you know, are submitting experience these thoughts and like this fear of like, oh my gosh, are they going to think less of me? You know, and hello, toxic masculinity. Like, of course, as a man, he's experiencing it like full throttle. So the conversation that he has with his brother in the end, the one who's also a Domme. I thought that was actually probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole book. Is that you have this dominant man having a conversation with his submissive brother, but it's not like what his brother says to him is beautiful. He's like, I think I'm, do you think of me any less like, because am I weak because I'm submissive? And his brother's like, are you kidding me? You think you're weak? Like, it takes so much to give up that much to someone, like to trust someone to, rule your body and your life and everything. Like, that is incredible, know? And I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? I never really thought about it that way. Like, I love that scene, like, between the guys. I really liked that one.
I like that the brother told him that, too. I did think that this scene was unrealistic, because I'm like, he's really private, but then he's, like, okay with, I guess because he's pushed to the limit of, like, oh my god, I might be losing my wife, so then he's like, okay,
because they should have had this, it's that moment in every rom-com where they're like, you should have just had this conversation, and everything. I mean, that's what I expect from a romance. Like, I mean, that's that moment always happens where there's some sort of misunderstanding or something happening. Like, I get it. But yeah, and theirs was like super extreme, because theirs went from, them having a threesome to her basically saying, I'm leaving, I'm going to go live at my parents' apartment. Like, and she tells the kids, you're going to stay with dad for a little bit. You'll stay with me for a little bit. I mean, it gets really intense, like super quickly too. Yeah. So
that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. I don't know
the script.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I already mentioned this, but I like the things that they explored, specifically like pegging and threesomes. I was like, okay, cool. Especially the pegging part, because I think that's something that people there are a lot of people who are not even into the BDSM thing.
Yeah.
Who might be interested in that. And so
absolutely.
It's cool that they explored that. I did also like the fact that I was a little on the edge about, is Hannah the person who's stealing? I figured it was her before, but I was like, oh, what's going to happen when, like, she finds out that it's her? And so I even though you were saying that you felt like you didn't need that part, I was like, I kind of liked that it kind of brought this situation in there, that it was like, oh, what's going to happen next?
Well, and to be fair, and this is the whole, like, side plot of, Hannah and Sam work together, and Sam basically uncovers evidence to show that Hannah's been stealing some funds, and I think you're right in that it shows character growth for Sam, because I don't think she would have handled that situation the same way at the beginning of the book that she does at the end of the book. So I mean, I definitely understand why it's there. There were just a couple things like that where I would, question, like, do we need this here? Like, I'd like to focus more on the couple, especially when this is like something I would consider like a relationship story as opposed to like a romantic story, like, because just they've been together for so long that it's them rediscovering what they love about each other and why they're together and everything. And if not for the first time, because I feel like this is such a difference from where they started as a couple in college.
Yeah. The history is, like, really deep there, so it feels like you're entering something that's, like, already been established, and it's not, like, somebody being swept away, which is what I would imagine maybe the other books are like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, there's definitely romances with people who have a history. Like, they're usually called second chance romances. Like, we were together a long time ago. We broke up for a certain reason. Can we make it now, And then, of course, there's... You like that? And then, of course, there's, romances where I feel like the vision most people have of like a contemporary romance is that man meets woman, they don't like each other, and somehow they win each other over. Hooray! Sort of thing where it's always like opposites attract, like they don't get along, but then by the end they do. Okay. In bed and out. But, I mean, it's definitely, so in terms of if you're looking to pick up a romance, this definitely is different. Like, I really did enjoy it, and I appreciate it for what it is. I can say that had I lived in this world with Samantha and Brady, I would not want to be involved romantically with either of them, because I find them both so they're so down on themselves, like, that it would just be so hard for me to be with either of them.
I totally agree with you on that. That's one of, like, my dislikes. Yeah. So,
that's fine. Yeah. We can dive into dislikes. That's fine. I mean, I think there's a lot to appreciate about this book. I think for me, the biggest thing to appreciate about this book is just the nature of this story that I feel like is not told enough, that we get to explore different facets of different people's sexualities. It's a couple. I love that they're not like 22 also. I love that they're a married couple. Yeah. I mean, they even talk about mental health and anxiety, and both Brady and his daughter have, some sort of ADHD, and he even talks about how, like, he was never diagnosed as a kid, but, like, he knows something's wrong with him, and he, doesn't really want to acknowledge it. Like, I mean, there's a lot there. It's really interesting characters and situations that I feel like you don't typically see in a romance novel.
Yeah, and I think
excuse you. Oh, that was so much attitude.
He wants attention. His stare is so funny to me.
The prince. Lay down.
I feel like maybe everybody who reads this will be able to find themselves in some kind of aspect of one of the characters. So
yes.
I think that's cool.
No, I think that's fantastic to mention. So thank you for that. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the things that maybe just, like, didn't sit with us well, or, weren't your favorite topics of the book. Go for it.
The happy ending, I'm like, you know what?
You didn't like a happy ending?
No.
You wanted them to break up?
I would be okay if they stayed together, but something needed to, like, stay fucked up. Like, either her job needed to be fucked up, or, like, her, like, I don't know, like, the Hannah situation needed to get fucked up more.
You just want to, like, torture the characters.
Maybe a little. Maybe it's my Domme coming out, but I'm I'm just like, I need this to be as real as possible.
Okay.
And that's probably asking for a lot, since it's supposed to be entertaining, and it's supposed to be like it's a novel. It's a romance novel.
Right.
But
because I think what's interesting is, like, as Sam describes it when she's talking about romance novels in this book, like, the girl gets the job, the girl gets the husband, everything works out great. Yeah. That really is what happens. I mean, she already has a job. She gets a promotion to be, like, the job that she really wants. She and her husband work out well. They kind of figure out what's going to work for them. I mean, even he gets, diagnosed with ADHD. I mean, like, even he finds, like, everything works out well for him. Oh, I'm going to take off days at work to be at home and, like, leave early. And I mean, you're right. It's definitely tied up with a bow at the end, which I don't have a complaint about. For me, I don't know if it matches the rest of the book, if that makes sense. Like, it just kind of, like, the book itself was kind of, I mean, at the start, it was, like, a little gloomy. Like, they definitely have a sadder backstory than, like, a lot of the books that I typically read do, at least in the romance genre. So for them to have everything work out so well in the end, I'm with you in that I was like, oh, wow, that really worked out much better than I expected.
Yeah. It was like, okay, now we're ending the book, and this is the end. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because it did, like, their little, like, breakup thing into them getting back together and everything going well. There's not a lot. It's definitely very close to the end when they have their little, spat and break up for a hot second.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that they actually, like, separated, I was like, oh, shit. Like, this might actually end this way.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
And I also thought for a second, okay, this might be more real.
That might be it. Yeah. That might be it. They break up and they just learn to co-parent.
Yeah. And then maybe that would have, I also felt like them, like going downhill so quickly was kind of unrealistic too, because, like you were saying, it happened so quickly. Yeah. But then, at the same time, like, I'm glad that was in there. Maybe I'm asking for too much, but I don't know.
I know, I get what you're saying. Like, for me, I felt like the pacing kind of went in spurts. Like, it would be like, we had this kind of long introduction to who they are and what's going on with them in the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
And then there'd be this hot moment, oh my God, we just discovered something new about ourselves. But then they'd back away and like we'd step away from that for a little bit. And then it'd be hot. And then immediately after would be like, he's feeling humiliated. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm locking myself in the bathroom. Like, you know, so it kind of like, I don't know if it was like a kind of a natural flow, but then again, I mean, relationships aren't a natural flow either. So it's, you know, I totally, I'm with you, but then I also like argue with myself about it too. So I get it. I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. And like you were mentioning about the flow of things, I think part of the reason why I wasn't happy with the ending is because of the trajectory of the way things were going. Like, in the beginning, I was getting annoyed with how strung out they were and how much complaining that Sam was doing in the beginning.
Oh my gosh. That was like one of my biggest peeves with this book is that I get that he has ADHD that has not been diagnosed, but he was like, he like couldn't do anything. Like, I'm like surprised he could like tie his shoes. Like, he just,
I know.
It was very like, did you ever see like Bad Moms?
I don't think so. Which one is that?
Okay. It was like Mila Kunis and Kristen Bell and, what's her name? Katherine Hahn. And they basically, they're different kinds of moms, but they like bond because they're like, oh my gosh, everything we do is bad. I mean, it kind of has a very similar setup, except Bad Moms was funny and this is not. Like, and it sort of is like the serious Bad Moms of like, where she thinks everything she does is wrong. She has to pick up after everybody. She has to, you know, take care of her husband, take care of her kids, like take care of her parents. But every time she would mention stuff that she was doing, I'd be like, but do you have to be doing that? Like, you don't have to be doing that. Like, you didn't have to quit school. You didn't have to do that. Like, I just kept wanting to, like, be like, girlfriend, get it together.
Exactly.
Like, you are doing this to yourself. Yeah. And then for him, it was the same thing where I'm like, he's like a toddler. Like,
worse.
He couldn't do anything. And then he's supposed to be like, he started this company that's done so well with his buddies, but, like, we never really understand, like, what he's doing and like, you know, I mean, I don't know, it just didn't really seem like he was ever doing anything. And then basically like his metamorphosis, which is like a recurring theme in the book, which I do appreciate because that really is what the book is about transformation.
Yeah.
His transformation is that by the end, he basically installs an app on his phone to remind him of things to do instead of his wife doing it for him. Which I'm like, okay, that's a step. That's a step in the right direction. Like, obviously, you're not going to cure your ADHD. Like, I get it. But, like, for that to be, like, the main change for him, I was like, oh, bro. Like, you got it rough, but I can't deal with you. Like, I could not deal with either of them or their children. Like,
oh my gosh.
Can we talk about that bitch, Allegra?
Yeah, I was super annoyed. Like, I almost didn't want the author to like write any more about them because I was like, this is like taking away from it for me.
The kids. Yeah. No, I know. There were definitely a lot of characters, side characters in this book that I was like, I liked them in that I really did see a lot of people making this transformation that, again, goes back to the theme, like, his safe word when they're having sex is metamorphosis, which, I'm sorry, is unrealistic as a safe word. That is too many syllables.
That's true, yeah.
Right? Like, red, blue. Like, we don't need metamorphosis. Like, but it definitely ties in with the theme of the book. But, I mean, you see the grandparents' transformation, like, they finally make the move to start this next chapter in their lives. Yeah. You see the daughter's transformation that they actually do start to be less problematic as the book goes on. Like, and each of our main characters has this transformation, like, both together and individually, which I think is so important. But at the same time, there were so many people in this book that I could not keep everyone straight.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I guess this goes more into, like, the whole beginning of it kind of being, like, really the book started getting interesting to me towards the middle.
Yes.
And part of that was because I was sick and tired of like the author going back into their history. I didn't need to hear like several times about how things were much better when they first met. I didn't need to hear the details.
We get
about
that.
her.
We see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was too much for me. I want to be more in the present of what's going on now.
Like, I think we hear the fact that they haven't had sex or been intimate with each other probably a solid 10 times before they actually have sex in the book. Like, and I get it. I mean, it really is... Rebecca Grace Allen really does paint a portrait of, I feel like, the way people think about marriage. Right. Sort of like about, you know, this couple's been together for a long time. They've had kids. Like, you know, they just kind of fell into like, okay, we're just going to be one of those couples that like is married, has kids, doesn't have sex anymore. Like we go about our lives, you know. I mean, that's, it's really realistic in that sense. But again, I'm with you. It definitely takes a while to get into the meat of the story. Yeah. Like, and then when you get into it, it's like bang, 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 you know, like literally. And, but, which is great, you know, and then we're with that for so long that then by the end, it feels a little bit rushed. So no, I agree. What did you think about the quality / quantity of the sexual explicit content?
I felt like the quality was pretty good. Sometimes it made me laugh, which is fantastic.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. What was it, like stuff they said, or like you're just kind of like laughing, like, ooh, like giggling? What was it?
I think the funniest part to me was after she finished pegging him, and then the author's description of how his booty hole felt. I was like,
oh my gosh. Such a specific memory. I love it.
It made me literally laugh out loud, and I was like, okay, cool. And so that was cool. But what else made me laugh? Me probably relating some of the stuff to my past experiences too, but that one thing about the booty hole being loose afterwards, I don't think she
actually uses the term booty hole. I think you are putting a booty hole into the book.
I am.
So for anybody hoping that there's going to be the phrase booty hole, it's definitely not in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of ass play in this, and specifically man ass play, which I personally would love to see more of in books.
For sure.
I really would, because I want to say we actually did review a book for this podcast where there was one scene where a guy gets a little bit of like, she doesn't put anything in his ass, but she like plays with him with her vibrator. And I was like, oh my God, damn, that's hot. But like, I feel like the only other times where I've seen any man ass play has been in a male romance. So this was a first for me. I really enjoyed it. I was like, I feel like I need more of this in my life.
Definitely, because I feel like a lot of guys are into that.
So, but again, they don't toxic masculinity.
Exactly.
Like they don't want to admit it, because then they'll be a weak man, or oh my God, I want someone to touch me in my butt, I must be gay. Yeah. Like, it's, God, get over it.
Please get over it.
Yeah, because you know what? We'll do it.
Exactly.
We will do it. Like, I mean, that's the thing too, is like, all you got to do is ask.
Exactly. Talk about it. Yeah. That's why I'm like, it was frustrating for them to not be communicating, like those big things. Well, I mean, they communicated him liking butt play, but then they didn't communicate the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like they go online and they buy all these toys together and they talk about what they want to do and everything, but they don't talk about the important, like the really big important things. Like, which again, this is like such a real thing in relationships. Like I get it.
Exactly.
So I mean, it's not really like a fault of the book as far as I'm concerned. It's just a fault of the characters. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, because I mean, it's not like. It's not like that was missing in the book. Like, I feel like it's missing on purpose in the book, like to make you be like frustrated with the characters and that. Why can't you? It's the horror movie, you know, complex where you're like, don't go behind that door. There's somebody waiting to kill you. Like in this one, it's like, why won't you have that conversation? We all know you feel that way. Tell her how you feel, you know? So, I mean, I totally think that Rebecca Grace Allen made that choice.
I see.
So, I mean, maybe I'm giving her too much credit, but I'm like, she is a professional author, so I'm assuming that was done intentionally.
I hope she did, because that's the real part of it, like you were saying, because like guys have difficulties like coming up to us and being like, I like my booty hole licked. Why am I obsessed with the word booty hole? I don't know,
but I am loving it.
Cool, thanks. But I hopefully this will inspire. Well, I guess men, do they read these type of books, or
they should?
They should.
And if they don't, hopefully they listen to this podcast and they start doing it.
Yeah. Or maybe it will inspire a woman out there to encourage her boo thing or partner to explore his interest in butt stuff.
Butt stuff.
Yeah.
There you go. Hashtag butt stuff. I love it. Okay, well, since we're on the topic of butt stuff, we might as well give everyone a little sensual reading of perhaps one of your favorite explicit moments in this book. And there are plenty to choose from. Like, I will tell you that, like, if you are looking for a good, hot, exciting read, you have to get through the first third of the book first to get there. But when you do, you will be rewarded. So, before we get into our segzerps, let's take a quick break. Hey listeners, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Boobies and Newbies. You can catch up on old episodes and check out some of your other favorite podcasts on the Podcoin app. Podcoin is the app that pays you to listen to podcasts. You can download it on iPhone or Android. It's free, super easy to use, and the best part, you earn Podcoins, which you can trade in for gift cards or donations to charity. It's awesome. I literally listen to all of my podcasts now on Podcoin. So download the Podcoin app today on the App Store or Android. You can use the code BoobsNoobs, that's right, BoobsNoobs, to get 300 Podcoins just for signing up. Thanks again for listening. Do you have a specific scene that you'd like to read from?
I do. It's actually a pretty simple scene, or pretty simple few lines.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, that was a fucking win. He drifted his touch, feather soft, on the outside of her lips until her head fell back and she swinged her legs wider. Her clit picked out, pink and wet. Brady grazed it with his pointer finger and paused when she jumped. May I? He asked. Do I explain why I like it? Okay.
Yeah, no, go for it. I mean, you tell me what you like about it.
I liked it. It was a pretty simple thing. I thought like as we've already discussed, like the butt stuff is cool and the threesome scene is cool too. But I like the simplicity of that because I could put myself in the character's place. Yeah. And I could imagine myself there, and I was like, ooh, clit peeked out, pink and wet. I'm like, damn, that's like delicious.
there was some great word choice for sure. Like, I mean, even if it's not your kink, and I mean, personally speaking, I don't like the idea of like humiliation. Like, I totally understand a lot of things about the Dom sub relationship, but that's just not my kink, you know? But I mean, regardless, like the word choice is fantastic. Like, she definitely paints a very vivid image of what's happening and who it's happening to and what's going on. So, yeah. I'm with you. I mean, I could read something from, you know, the pegging scene, which I think is great, but this one specific passage made me laugh, but I also really liked it. Because they always emphasize how big this guy is, and I actually like that. I like that he was this giant man. Yeah. Like, because I was like, this is perfect. This is who you wouldn't expect to be a submissive in this relationship, and that's why I love it. So she says to him, Your legs are like tree trunks, pet, she said. I want to climb them. I want to ride your powerful, beautiful body like a Ferris wheel until I've wrung every last shaking drop of pleasure from the both of us. Oh, Jesus. It wasn't just the promise of what she was offering. It was hearing that nickname again, pet. Being called that so easily by her was too intimate, too terrifying. It implied safety and vulnerability and being taken care of, and he wasn't sure he was safe here yet. Safety meant honesty, openness, and they hadn't discussed a thing. Not that talking was his top priority right now, but still. Yeah. I mean, I was like, that passage, like, when she's talking to him, like, makes me laugh. Just the fact that she's comparing him to, like, riding him like a Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
But then it goes into, like, you know, again, like, the proof that it's, like, even to be submissive, you're not weak. Like, you've got to be really strong to be vulnerable and trust someone and, like, trust them implicitly.
Exactly.
I mean, again, like, they both annoyed me a lot because I was like, oh my God, stop it. Just talk to each other.
Exactly.
You know, but I mean, it's real. I mean, it really is a real, regardless of the kink factor. I mean, it's a lot of the same issues you see in relationships.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, it could have just as easily been something else that was between them as opposed to it being kink.
Right.
So you're going to give the book 3 grades. You're going to grade for story, syntax, and sexcapades on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be. So we'll start with story.
I would give the story a 7 out of 10 just because it took it a while to get good for me and I didn't like the happy ending. Yeah.
You're so bitter. It's from living in LA.
You know what? Yes. Somebody the other day told me I'm just like a negative person. And I was like, what? Really? Maybe it's LA.
It's gotta be.
Okay.
It's got, but you know what? That'll just make for more great stand-up comedy.
Exactly.
So there you go.
There you
know,
go.
the more, I mean, all the stand-up comics that are like super successful, they're like super depressed,
That's
right?
so
like
true.
they have to have all this awful shit happening.
Yes.
I get it.
Okay, so it works.
I'm with you. I gave story a 7 too. I think it takes a little while to get started. When you get into the middle of it, it's really great. And it's something that I haven't seen enough of and I hope to see more of. And from there, I'm not upset about a happy ending. I'm okay with it. However, I am with you in that I think getting to the happy ending isn't as natural as I would have expected, so that I definitely would grade it down for that. How about syntax? So our wonderful Rebecca Grace Allen, her writing, her word choice, so what would you think of like her sentence structure? How does it all pan out for you?
I give her an 8 out of 10 on that just because I liked the creativity she used with describing certain things, especially within the scenes, like the sex scenes.
Yeah.
But I didn't give it a 10 out of 10 because I felt like she used the word "but" too much.
And not enough booty hole.
Yeah, exactly.
I was about to say, before you even said "but," I was like, she's grading it down because, like, she didn't say booty hole. Oh my God. No, I think that's totally fair. I gave it an 8 too. Twinsies.
Wow.
And for me, it was kind of the same. It was sort of like what we talked about before, where I feel like we were kind of hearing a lot of the same things over and over again, and you know, just didn't really need to, like, I didn't need the reminder. I'm like, we've met them, we've seen them, we understand they're unhappy and they haven't had sex in a long time, you know? But in terms of word choice, and especially when we get into how each of them had their own voice, I feel like that's so important in a story, is like every character, you could tell it was that character speaking.
Yeah.
Like they all had very specific voices. So I appreciated that immensely. And how about the sexcapades?
For that, I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Ooh.
I felt like they were realistic. I was glad that it didn't just stop at her being like, oh, you big silly man, like, get on your knees. It took it there where it needed to go. I didn't give it a 10 out of 10 because I would have liked to see more sexcapades.
Fair enough. I'm with you. I actually feel like, and I gave it a 9 too, so we're in sync. You know, hashtag
Cool.
It's gonna be May.
Hey.
for me, I felt like I was missing like one last sex scene. Like when they got back together, I kind of wanted to see the final scene between them that was like, okay, talking about everything we've talked about and figuring out what I want and what you want. I want to see this all come together in one last moment that shows we've found our stride. And there is a sex scene at the end, right? But I feel like it's not complete. Like no. That wasn't how I wanted it to end, you know? So that being said, what is in there is delightful. So
sure.
Delightful, dirty, lots of variations. So kudos to you, Rebecca Grace Allen. I'm all about it. Now that you've read a romance, are you thinking that you might need to dabble in a little bit more?
I don't think so. I feel bad saying that.
That's okay.
Realistically.
No, absolutely.
Realistically, I actually don't read for enjoyment or entertainment as much as I feel like I should.
Okay.
And when I do choose to do that, I tend to go more towards like self-help or
nonfiction.
Like, yeah.
Got it. Okay.
But I thought I did enjoy it. I thought it was cool, and it was a good experience.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Would you, even if you don't read anymore, would you recommend this book or like a romance novel to a friend?
Oh, good question. I think I would. Yes, I would recommend a romance novel to a friend. Specifically this one, if it was a friend who I knew might be interested in like the BDSM lifestyle.
Okay, fair enough. Like you wouldn't want, and you know what? I'm with you in that this would not be the book that like if I had a friend who was saying, I've never read a romance before, like recommend a book to me. I don't know if this would be the one I would say jump in and read this. But you know what? Some people also like that, like they're like, give me the dirtiest fucking thing you've ever read, which I don't think this was either. It just was a very different kind of dirty. Like it's you're right. It's if you know someone that's interested in the scene like this, I would fully recommend this book and probably the entire series. I haven't read the entire series, but I'm definitely interested in, I'll ask you too. Would you want to read? I know you don't want to read at all, but would you be interested in reading the other books in the series? Like, did you want to know more about some of the other characters in the series?
I didn't, and I think I think it's because like I don't have a lot of interest in the like in men being a top.
Okay.
So or men being tops. So just because of that alone, I would consider reading another romance novel outside of this kind of realm. Mm-hmm. But would I do it like off just like because I'm like, oh, I need something entertaining?
Yeah.
No.
You do it if I made you do another podcast to read another book. Like, Gabby, you have to read this one.
I'm being completely honest.
That's fine. Yeah. That's absolutely fine. I mean, to each their own books, to each their own kink. Like, it is absolutely fine. You know what? And I have to say, I'm with you in that I've read, I feel like most BDSM books I've read involve a male top, right? And a female bottom. And so that's why I found this one very refreshing. Like, even if it's not my kink, I was like, this is so interesting. I never see this. I want to see new representation, new perspectives. Like, so I feel like I'd be inclined to read the other book in the series where it's about the consensual consensual non-consent.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something to me that I'm like, I don't know if I've read that, so I'd be interested in just kind of seeing how that plays out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, maybe I'll take a peek.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this and joining me and talking about not only this book, but also your own personal experiences.
Thank you for having me. This is fun. This was very fun. Yeah.
Fabulous. And of course, you can follow Gabby on Twitter at Gabby. Ooh. That's only 2 O's though.
Exactly.